This is what this man says here. What is at stake is a process of financial cleansing whereby the too big to fail banks in Europe and North America, e.g. Citibank, JP Morgan, Chase, Goldman Sachs, etc. et al. Ad nauseam. I put the ad nauseam in there. Displace and destroy lesser financial institutions with a view to eventually taking over the entire banking landscape. Now, I mentioned that. That's one of the plans back in one of those episodes. I said the real deal here in this particular, should we say, landscape is that there is a fight going on between all these too big to prosecute banks to be the only king of the hill. That's what's happening. And this, we see this is the opening salvo, because this is designed. Okay, you have to understand this, and I've said this many times, that all this is planned and has been in the planning for a long time. Starting with the Dark Brotherhoods, who I'm going to get into at some later date. I mean, it's very clear to me from all the research I've done that this is what has been taking place. And it has been a plan that has been initiated by these Dark Brotherhoods as early as the 16th century. And methodically, cunningly, and relentlessly and ruthlessly implemented, as well as being refined and modified as circumstances change over the course of time. These people are very clever. You got to understand that. They're cunning and they're ruthless. And I have not mentioned what their ends are. I'm only talking about the means to the end right now, and have been. I mean, the whole strategy of the Mobuku Chronicles has been to forewarn you as to how you and your closest friends and relatives and family, associates, whatever, can take the steps to protect yourself from them. Because there's nothing you can do to stop it. No way. And it doesn't really matter, because the thing is collapsing. It's totally just falling about everybody's ears over there in the Bank of International Settlements, and who, by the way, is the central bank of all central banks, and it's located in Basel, Switzerland, and its members are 58 central banks. And they have diplomatic immunity. And they are not since they're an international organization, they're outside the purview of any single government. Therefore, they are totally and utterly above the law. A thoroughly sordid state of affairs. So, all right, so he goes on. There's a lot. It's long. I'm not going to read it all. I mean, what I suggest you do is to go to, what's it called, harveyorgan.blogspot.com and check out the posting, because he has the archives there. Check the posting for Wednesday, the 3rd of April, and it's all there. So you can read it for yourself. But I want to just highlight what I think are the most pertinent points, because he talks a lot about Canada. And the interesting thing about Canada is that they have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, quote unquote, too big to prosecute banks. And what's interesting here is Mark Carney is the name of the gentleman who is the governor of the Bank of Canada. And he will, in June of this year, become the head of the Bank of England. And guess what? Mark Carney is an alumnus of Goldman Sachs, as is the head of the European Central Bank, Mario Draghi. So you can see that Goldman Sachs is one of the chief powers in this whole banking system. And it's pretty clear that they want to be the top dog. There's no question about that. In other words, to be the only bank in the world. That's what I mean by top dog. Now, you look at Mark Carney, because there's a photograph of him here, and it's very interesting. The guy has serious kidney problems. I mean, serious. I mean, his kidneys are very depleted. Now, psychologically, what a serious depletion of the kidneys signify. It signifies fear and lack of confidence, insecurity. That's what it does. So this person, who's the head of the Bank of Canada, is a seriously insecure human being. He also has serious chronic intestinal stagnation in his lower abdomen, in his descending colon. You can see it in his face, facial diagnosis. So here we have a sick man, totally, running right now the Bank of Canada, and who is the author of the particular provision in the Canadian so-called Economic Action Plan for 2013. You know, this Economic Action Plan is designed to gut your bank account. That's the Economic Action Plan. All right, so let's go on here. All right, so in contrast to bailing out, which is funded from the public purse, you know, in other words, the taxpayer, a bank bailout. Let's see, what is it? Let me get that. I missed it. The bail-in requires the in-house confiscation of bank deposits. The bail-ins are implemented without the use of public funds. The regulatory mechanism is established by the central bank, who, of course, works for the banking system. I mean, the Federal Reserve is not a federal organization. It's not a federal bureaucracy. It is a private, for-profit corporation that is owned by the banking powers. So necessarily the Federal Reserve is going to do what the banking powers tells them to do. So Bernanke and Greenspan and all those people, they're not acting in a independent, they are not independent of the bankers. You know, they are not. And the bankers in turn dictate to the governments what they're supposed to do, because the bankers own the politicians. You know, it was not without, should we say, it wasn't accidental. No, Obama's campaign budget was $1 billion. And where did that money come from? It didn't come from you and me. So you see the picture I'm drawing here. Now, here we go. Concluding remarks. I'm going to read the whole lot of this because this is where it gets down to the real brass tacks, as the saying goes. What is occurring is that the bank bailouts are no longer functional. You know, the bailouts by the government, you know, the trillions of dollars. I mean, $23 trillion. Didn't work. That the Federal Reserve put into the banking system. And not only, you know, banking systems overseas too. Banks in overseas. Not to mention companies. I mean, you gave money to companies. Totally bizarre. Anyway, they haven't worked. In other words, they haven't, quote unquote, stimulated the economy, which is actually not what they were intended to do in the first place. They were intended to save the bankers' hides from financial evisceration. They had made bad bets, and unlike you and me, when we make bad bets, we pay for them. Not those guys. No, we bail them out. So not only the taxpayer, our taxes, have been wasted on these too big to prosecute banks, they are now going directly after our deposits in the bank. That is what's happening. It will and is going to happen. So, as I said earlier, over a year ago, get out of the banking system. Just keep enough money in there for your monthly expenses. That's it. If you don't want to be financially eviscerated. Hang on a minute, I've got to just change this. It's not what I wanted at all. All right. So, anyway, so I'm going to carry... At the outset of Obama's second term, the coffers of the state are empty. The austerity measures have reached a deadlock. You know, 47 plus million people on food stamps. Unemployment rate over 23%. Inflation rate over 8%. They say that inflation is subdued. Give me a break. Anybody who does their home and household budgeting knows full well that inflation is not contained. And then also I have to mention that on my Facebook page, that you should go there. And yesterday I put up a link to an article that was published on Zero Hedge last night about the state of health of the United States of America. And this is simply an appalling study. It's actually a whole series of what they call infographics. And it just shows you what's happening with the most advanced medical science in the history of the world. 1 hour.